Okay, so this video is going to be a review of things that we covered in class, and then we're going to explore something that we didn't necessarily do in this unit, but it's good practice for what seemed to be the biggest struggle when it came to using the quadratic formula. What I have here is standard form and the quadratic formula, and what is important is that you get the quadratic formula when you solve the standard form for x. So that mess of letters over there, when you complete the square with standard form, the end result is the quadratic formula. So that's important, that nothing really changed. It's just if you solved for x, your result for the letters that are in standard form would rearrange to become the quadratic formula. Now, I'm going to draw a box around a piece of the quadratic formula, and that's this right here. And this is something we didn't go too in depth with when we were doing this unit, but that b squared minus 4ac is something called a discriminant. And it's very important for just the overall, how should I put this? The nature of the quadratic equation that you might actually be dealing with. And what this does, it tells you how many real solutions you have. And remember, these are also called roots, okay? And so I'm going to set this up in a way that hopefully will give us some practice, but also it's going to be an opportunity for us to put some concepts together. Because you're going to be asked this on AZ Merit. I'm going to write out the discriminant for practice sake, because this is where we struggled. This is where a lot of students struggled, especially with that second part, the negative 4ac. So I'm just going to write this out. I'm going to do it in 3 different colors. So b times b, that's what b squared is. And then you have negative 4 times a times c. So you have this b times b, I'll put that in parentheses right here. That's going to be off on its own. And then the other part is negative 4 times a and times c. And you get these from the standard form of the quadratic equation. And hopefully if we write this out in this way, we're going to have more success going forward as far as plugging it into the quadratic formula correctly. Now, what I'm going to cover next, if this is positive, this means you have 2 real solutions. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm kind of out of room over here. We haven't covered imaginary numbers yet. We're not going to really, but 2 real solutions would look like this. It crosses the x-axis in 2 places. And so that's something that we had a good deal of practice with, to at least find the solutions. It's something you guys are very good at when you plug the stuff into Desmos. But you might be asked on AZ Merit, looking at this quadratic equation, how many real solutions do you have? Well, if that piece, that discriminant, is positive, it's going to cross the x-axis in 2 places. There will be 2 real solutions. Now the next one I'm going to do in kind of yellowish because it's different. So if we do b times b and a negative 4 times a times c, and it's equal to 0, this means 1 real solution. Again, I'm out of room over here, so I'm going to try to fit this in. But what this means, and hopefully I can draw it correctly, is that it touches the x-axis in 1 place. Now doesn't look like it touches it all that well right there, but it will sit on the x-axis. And these are perfect squared trinomials. So if you factored something into x plus 4, that's a double root, so it's one real solution. Well, when you would put that original quadratic equation, which would be x squared plus 8x plus 16, when you put that into the discriminant, you would end up with 0. So it just means that the parabola is going to be sitting on the x-axis. And then the last possibility, which I'm sure you can guess where this is going, if you have b times b, and then a negative 4 times a times c, and this is negative, we'll say that that has no real solutions. And this is something that we're not going to see really in this course, but you will when you're juniors and you take Algebra 3, 4. If we have this graph here, and we have a parabola, the parabola would be sitting up here in space. It still has roots. It's just that the way that they show up doesn't follow the same rules of what you're used to from your understanding of square roots. And this happens when you do the discriminant operation and you get a negative underneath the square root. I don't think we had it too much. I might have gotten a question here or there as far as what happens when you get a negative result. At this point for Algebra 1, 2, you would stop. You get a negative. If you correctly calculate your discriminant and it turns out negative, you can stop right there and say it has no real solutions. And so what that just means is that it sits above the x-axis or below it. If it would open downward, it would sit below it. So that's the recap of what seemed to be the trickiest part for you guys in using the quadratic formula, and some practice about what that piece actually means, and then how to analyze it once you do it correctly.